Hello and welcome to The Last Tackle. I'm delighted to welcome to the studio Carl Amor and Eddie Hemmings. Gents, good to see you. Round 17, there's only one place to start. Warrington 6, Leeds 22. Eddie, that's 3 defeats on the bounce at Warrington. That's just 1 win in 6. Last time you were sat here with me, it was looking good at the Halliwell Jones.
Well, it was their year, wasn't it, last time I was here? It suddenly has fallen to pieces for them. I know that, people will have criticism of what's going on at Warrington, and maybe rightly so. Darryl Powell worked himself into the ground during the winter to get his pack sorted out. They started off the season with their first choice pack, the big musclers, the big boppers. One couldn't keep his mouth shut, one couldn't settle, and it's all gone pear-shaped since. Sam Cassiano gets suspended, the discipline on the field has gone to pieces. So, in other words, and I don't know as much as this fella here, Kyle, but in other words, to me, the backs and the three quarters are being pushed back and back and back, and they're not got the go forward, which they had in the first 8 weeks of the season. I feel sorry for them. The people in Warrington haven't lost faith yet, but if it doesn't go right
shouldn't have to
this
start
week,
that anyway.
It might go a little bit angry again, and they've got Wigan to come, and then Wakefield, who they couldn't beat last year.
And then Catalan, Eddie, I think it is as well, isn't it, after that? So
Slipped from 2nd to 4th.
Yeah, no, they've got some tricky fixtures coming up. But, just watching that game against Leeds, for me, there was a couple of little worrying signs. There was a lot of players, and the comments were made as well in commentary about how frustrated they looked with one another. So maybe is there a little bit of that, that muscle memory from last year, starting to rot in and eat away at the team. I don't know, but they have certainly dropped below all of their standards that what they set. Right at the start, Eddie, I couldn't see a team going with them. They were literally blowing them away, and they almost look like a completely different side. Darryl Powell said a couple of times that some of the stuff that they're doing is unrecognisable from that period, of that opening 8 games, but there's certainly 1 or 2 little cracks starting to appear.
There was great hope when they went to Catalan. Gil Dudson was sent off and they came home with a win.
Yeah. Yes.
That would have happened 12 months ago. It happened this year, and everyone thought, this is it.
Yeah.
This is... I get absolutely flogged for saying this in Warrington. This is our year, But it has gone sour. They have slipped. When I was last here, they were riding high at the top of the table. Now it's a Catalan Dragons.
But they're only 4 points off Cats.
Yeah. But as Carl rightly has said, a difficult run of fixtures to come for them. Crucial run of fixtures to come for them. Wigan, Saints, Wakefield, Catalan.
But wow. I think, Eddie's mentioned there the two big bookends that haven't quite, that have seemed to fell away a little bit. Obviously, one of them back in Australia now, but the biggest one of all is George Williams.
Yeah.
George Williams was incredible.
Back.
He was incredible, wasn't he, at the start of the year? And
carried on his World Cup form, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything he was touching was turning to gold, and they just not, with him not there, it seems to, their attack certainly has seemed to have fallen apart.
Darryl Powell said it's Super League life and it's our responsibility to get back to form.
It's his Super League life.
He was quite philosophical.
He's very philosophical. He stayed apparently in the coach's box in the stadium for a quarter of an hour after the match, probably to settle himself down, because he knew he was going to get a barrage of abuse from the supporters as he made his way down to the press room. I'm convinced of that. And then he had to answer the questions, sit in front of the cameras and talk the talk and do the walk. Well, I go back to my original point. I feel sorry for him because it seemed to be going well. He seemed to have the right ideas. He seemed to have the big pack that would take them forward. And now you look back and it's almost the same as 2022.
But the problem is as well with Warrington is there's 13 lots of sets of supporters who are loving what's happening. They're absolutely loving it. When Warrington were flying high, everybody was like, oh, actually, could it be on now? And then as soon as they fall, well, the jokes come out. It's always our year. So everybody loves it. So they're not going to get any favours or help from anybody. It's all got to be, on themselves. And look, the competition, that from first right down to 7th is almost, there's not a lot between them, is there? So 2 good wins and everybody's saying it's back on. However, 2 bad losses and they're out of the 6, So there's a lot to...
If they beat St Helens this weekend, and it's a huge if,
yeah.
If they beat St Helens this weekend, it's back on again.
Of course
We'll talk about the game in detail later. Let's just talk about Leeds. Another good away win, But 8th, 16 points, have been so inconsistent this term, haven't they?
Yeah, they have.
Because they can turn up next week and be anything.
Exactly. You know, you look back through the results, and some that stands out straight away in my head: a win away at St Helens, a win away at Wigan, and then
Wigan went down to 12 men,
and then a loss against Wakefield. You know, you're dead right. The consistency of being inconsistent is all there, but. I thought, you know, one guy who seems to sort of got it between his teeth at the minute, Blake Austin, I thought he was sensational in that game against Warrington, as he was the week earlier as well. So I know a lot of speculation in and around that man's future, but he's playing pretty well at the moment.
Let's talk about Friday's game. Another win for Wakefield, a good win as well, 32-6 over Salford. Just 4 points behind Castleford now, Wakefield.
Yeah. Look, and you know, if they can manage to grab one or two more wins, well, yeah. You know, this is what we want as fans, though, isn't it? We want the top 6. Nobody knows what's going on there. We want the bottom as well. So, you know, I think I do think there's wins there for Wakefield towards the back end of the year. The question is how many more will Castleford get? And you know, if they can narrow that gap, then pressure does weird and wonderful things to teams and players. So, you know, watch that space as well.
And not too far down the track, they play each other as well. So if Wakefield nick a win between then and now,
at Bellevue as well.
Exactly.
Drop one off, you know, it will hay again. And the other worry, from my point of view, is Huddersfield. Huddersfield are going down like a stone at the moment, and they could well be dragged into this relegation battle. You think 8 points, they're probably out of it, but hey, if Castleford and Wakefield nick a couple, and then they have that match, you know, it's squeaky bum time. It really is down at the bottom of the table.
What about Salford? Playing great rugby, got a few injuries, but they've lost the last 3.
I know, they were going well. You see, when I was last here, what you're saying is absolutely right. They were all going. Salford were going well. Hull Kingston Rovers were going well. I counted Leeds out of the top 6 right away. Said Rowan Smith was under pressure, and they go out and do what they've done. You know, but isn't this? You're right.
Exactly.
Isn't this what we want? For too long, it's been Wigan, Saints, Leeds, and you can throw Radford into the mix. You know, when you go way back. There's not many names on that grand final trophy, is there, on the Super League trophy? This could be the year when we get a new name. I mean, Lee, second in the table.
Insane,
I asked you last time we were on what odds have they got for them being 4th. I mean, you couldn't have even priced it, could you, for Lee to be second and in the Challenge Cup semi-final?
I think the interesting thing about Lee, Carl, is we've been talking about Lee all season, that the signed experience, in Charnley and Hardacre. But then you've got Edwin Mbappe, Championship Player of the Year. He looks brilliant. He's only 24 as well.
Yeah, no, they've got the recruitment bang on. You know, Chris Chester, Adrian Lamb. What they had is they had a year to... This time round, they prepared for it a year early. So while they were in the Championship, they started recruiting, where years gone by, they'd have waited to see what happened and then started to recruit. You know, so they've had a much more settled squad, a much more... a lot more clarity in where they're going to go. But, you know, one thing that does concern me and worry me is we've talked about Salford and Hull KR, you know, the injuries they've had. This Lee side have really, you know, they've not picked up too many whatsoever, and you just get the sense with that smaller squad, the fatigue of the season will set in at some point. You know, the ones that usually win the competitions normally have the best squad, not just the best 17, 18 players. So it does concern me that, and you know, if they lose any of their spine, well, you know, you do worry for them, because again, Pape, Lachlan Lamb, Ben Reynolds in there too, Gareth O'Brien, a lot of the good stuff that's coming from the Lee Leopards usually has those hands are all over it.
You make a very good point about the size of the squad. You're absolutely right. But I mean, I've never played the game. I've never been out there. If you've got a run going like they've got going, I would just wonder if adrenaline takes over, and you know, you don't want to be injured. You don't want to drop out of the squad in case you can't get your way back in. I think Chris Chester needs a huge round of applause, because Adrian Lamb, you know, it's wonderful for him after the trials and tribulations he went through at Wigan. Chris Chester's come in, and I think he has been the key signing by Derek Beaumont. I really do. Yeah. And you've also got to doff your cap to Derek. He's dug into his pocket, £2 million. Let's get going. The crowds are coming back. The crowds are back. They're there. He's put on a show.
It's entertaining rugby.
It's entertaining stuff, and he's got a team that is second in the Super League table. It's unbelievable.
Well, Matt,
and in the semi-finals of a Challenge Cup.
Exactly, and could go to Wembley.
Well, we were talking about just off air earlier about how, you know, fans want more than just the game now. They want an experience. Well, Derek Beaumont, he's putting that on. There's a party at Lee every other weekend, isn't he? And, you know, I think a lot of credit's got to go to him. You know, he loves the club through and through.
And a lot of credit to Adrian Lamb, because let's be honest, you know, question marks that spell at Wigan. Yeah. And now he's taken Lee up and got him second.
But he has an eye for a player himself. Let's not forget, he was the one who brought Jay Field over. He brought Jay Field to the Super League. Although, you know, he had a horrendous injury that sort of scuppered that. Had Jay Field have been playing in that Adrian Lamb side, could it have changed his fortunes? I don't know. You know, but what he has done,
it was a very good chance.
Yeah. I mean, look, he was sensational last year. Done a lot of good stuff at Wigan, but now obviously at Lee, he's had to go down to the Championship, be patient, build his squad, instill confidence and belief in them, and look where it's taken them. You know,
he's almost had a blood transfusion, hasn't he, Adrian? You know, after what happened to him at Wigan. And all the pressure that went on there. Oh, they're not playing the attractive stuff. They're too defensive-minded. Now he's gone to Lee, as you say, and he's brought the players in that he's brought in. And he has an eye for a player. I mean, I know his son is his son, but what a star he is. Yeah. Lachlan Lamb is ripping it apart at the minute. And this Epapi, the hooker, the big problem he's going to have in 2024 is holding on to them, I think. You know, they'll be circling now. The Hawks are circling. They know who are making League tick.
We did a brilliant feature on the League camp. The whole show was from a couple of years ago. Fantastic. A couple of weeks ago. Fantastic show on this YouTube channel. Right, St Helens 22, Castleford 0. Carl, your old club. I just find it fascinating this season. World champions been written off. That's now 7 wins in 8. I realise they lost at Hull the last game before. But they have lost 6 matches this season. That's un-St Helens-like. That's why people have been asking questions. But look, they're still in the mix, and you don't win the trophy in July.
No, you don't. You don't. And look,
it is July, isn't
you know,
it?
the last sort of 3 or 4 years, you know, Saints have been, you know, pretty dominant, and they've been pushed close. And whether they finish first or second in the league, there hasn't been too many losses, has there, for those sorts of 2 or 3 clubs. But now, you know, as we've already mentioned, there's not just St Helens that have lost 6 games. Wigan might have lost 5 or 6 themselves, and you know there's an awful lot of.
Wigan have lost 6. Lawrenson have now lost 6.
Lawrenson have lost 6. So there's lots and lots of losses.
Lee have lost 6. Carlands have lost 4.
Exactly. You know, so we've got this year. We've got the competition as, you know, people picking up points and losing points all over the place. That's what's making it so exciting. But for me, you know, St Helens, you know, I actually think, and this might be a bit throwing it out there, I think St Helens, I think the group of players need a new narrative. I think their narrative for too long is let's attack the season, get to the top of the league, win the grand final. I think this playing group perhaps needs to almost limp in towards the playoffs and let everybody write them off. And then them create a new narrative, a different story, a different way to win the competition. I think that will really challenge some of those players who perhaps have just been and done it over and over again. There's a mental fatigue when you constantly keep winning. I lived it for long enough where you have to be on training every day, you have to be on games every day. You always get the very best version of, let's say, I'll use Wakefield as an example. Wakefield will come to St Helens knowing that has to be their very best version. They might end up losing by a large amount the week after, but you always get the very best. And I just feel that, you know, there is perhaps a bit of a mental fatigue of being that good, how they've been, that perhaps they need a new narrative heading into, you know, if it's going to be that drive for 5.
Do you think Saints could do a Leeds and win it from 5th?
Absolutely. And I think for many of the players, Eddie, I think that itself is a narrative. You know, a lot of the older players who were still part of, you know, those 5 losses to Leeds, you know, the Tommy Makinsons, James Robys, Louis McCarthy-Scarsbrook, Johnny Lomax, the real key leaders in that group. I think that narrative of maybe just limping into the playoffs, you know, makes it, you know, puts the bit between the teeth. I do, and it's just my take on it.
I thought it was the drive for 5, not the drive from 5th.
Well, either way,
drive from 5,
drive from 5, or whatever you want to call it. I just feel that's the biggest way, or one of the ways that I think that playing group will be. You know, everybody writ them off in Australia. Nobody give him a chance, and look what they found there. That performance is still very much in this group.
Right, Wigan 22, Huddersfield 6. Right. let's just deal with Huddersfield first of all. 4 defeats in a row.
I know, desperately.
And spent dough.
Desperately sorry for Huddersfield and for Ian Watson in particular. I mean, a bright, young British coach. So much expected. Good owners in people like Ken Davey, you know, who will back him, who've got the cash to back him. What on earth has gone wrong? I don't think they could have beaten Leeds that night at Headingley when it was the MND round and all the emotion with Rob Burrow. I sort of expected that to be a defeat for Huddersfield. I didn't expect it to be 54-0, with all due respect to them. And they were lucky not to be nilled at the weekend as well. I notice, so I'm told, I said this once before and ended up in the paper. I'm told that Ken Davey has told everybody at Huddersfield there is no pressure on Ian Watson whatsoever. Now that's the dreaded vote of confidence. As soon as Justin Holbrook was sacked by Gold Coast Titans, the rumour was he was coming to Huddersfield, and Huddersfield had to issue a we're not interested story about that. It's whirling around Huddersfield, isn't it? It's whirling around Ian Watson. He's got the talent to get out of it himself. He's got some talented players on the field.
They've lost 11 games. Yeah.
But they've lost far too many games this year, and they are in danger, if they're not careful, of being sucked into the Wakefield, Castleford, Wakefield 1 from 3 for relegation. If it doesn't stop soon.
I just think there's ways that you can lose, isn't there? There's ways you can lose, and some of the losses that's where the eyebrows are raised and the rumours start happening, and you know, media start thinking, is there a bit of a problem in the camp, and then the pressure gets mounted on Ian Watson. I think when you lose, most fans can cop losses, but when it looks like they've completely you know, when it looks like the whole playing group are disconnected, that's when questions start coming. And at the moment, for the talent that Eddie's just mentioned there, and the resources that Ken Davies give Ian Watson, it doesn't seem to me like the club and the players and the coach are all connected together.
Where are Wigan at?
Well, they're always going to be a threat. Wigan are Wigan, aren't they? They're always going to be a threat. They're not too far away. They also are spending big for 2024 already. Cruz Leeming and co coming in. Walters too from Leeds, isn't he? What a great young player he is.
Quality.
You know, let's talk about young British players for a change rather than old has-been Aussies.
Yeah.
Sorry if you're an Australian, but that's the way I feel. You know, we lose halfbacks and we go halfway around the world and bring a 35-year-old to try and sort things out for us. Where are our young kids coming through? Something that Steve always on about week after week. We're all worried about the top of the iceberg. There's a lot going on underneath. But where Wigan are, well, they're in the semi-final. They could still do both. They could still win both. There's no question about that. They've got some big boppers up front, Wigan. They play some great stuff. And they've got Jay Field and Bevan French. And they've got speed to burn out wide. So with them, don't write Wigan off. Don't write the Saints off. Don't write Wigan off. You know, it could be the Challenge Cup final. Those two could be. Yeah. They're all right. Wigan are okay. Wigan will be having a dig in the playoffs, no question.
Hull 18, Catalans 28. Right, are we giving Steve McNamara and his Catalan side the respect they deserve now? Because they're up at the top, and he's had a lot of injuries this term.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think they're, strangely enough, and I don't know how, nobody's really even talking about them. You know, really. No. You know, the top of the league. Yeah. But everyone's more concerned about St Helens and Warrington. And they are, aren't they? You know, Huddersfield even in there. Nobody's really mentioning about Catalan Dragons.
We've got to go over to France.
No, well...
Every other week. It's a 2 hours flight. They do it every other week coming up here.
No, massive respect for what Steve McNamara's doing.
He's got rid of that inconsistency tag, definitely.
He has, and obviously what happened, you know, they got to that grand final back in 2021, wasn't it?
Yes.
I think it was 2021. Obviously a bit of a different year the year after, but he's shown now that Catalan aren't just a flash in the pan team that get to a grand final. They are striving to be one of the most dominant teams in Super League, and I think what they've got is they've got an incredible balance of youth, experience, size, power, speed, you know, and I think they've got all the ingredients really to stay where they are.
Absolutely, and they've got young French players coming
through.
Sam's going at the end of the year. They think they've got Artur Morg who can take over from him.
Well, he's been doing it this season.
He's been doing it this season already. Sam's been shifted. They've got Johnston on the wing, who is sensational. You know, he's leading scorer, isn't he?
Tom Davies as well.
Tom Davies
you know,
on the other
another
side.
sensational one.
And they've got the grunt behind them that is Mickey McAlorum,
Still going.
You wouldn't pick a fight with him, would you?
No. Right, that's round 17 wrapped up. Just a reminder, we've got some live rugby league for you on Sunday on this channel in the Betfred Women's Super League. It's Warrington Wolves versus St Helens on air at 1:45, 2 p.m. kickoff. That's on Sunday. You can watch the whole derby on Sky and then watch that here on The Sportsman.
You're watching the Sportsman Rugby League.
The home of Rugby League online.
Subscribe for exclusive live games from the Betfred Women's Super League and Challenge Cup.
Right, let's turn our attention to round 18. On Friday night, live on Sky, massive game. No Cassiano, no Harrison for Warrington. Will George Williams be back? We don't know at this stage as we record the show. Warrington versus St Helens, live on Sky.
Season-defining match for Warrington, I think.
I think it is now, isn't it?
I really do think so. Yeah, I really do think so. I mean, just looking here, I remember going to the Halliwell Jones and going to Knowsley Road, and they couldn't beat St Helens. They simply could not beat St Helens. They were ahead with seconds to go. Kieran Cunningham, Sean Long, something happened. Saints had the eye on them. There was no question about that. They haven't beaten them this year either, and St Helens and Wigan, I think, were the start of the demise. Those 2 weeks where they lost successively against them, that was the beginning of the wobble.
Yeah.
This could be the beginning of the eruption again. They could come back. It's a vital game for Warrington. Hand on heart, I don't think Warrington will win. But in this season that we've got, where you just cannot predict, and you turn up at games, you look at it and think, who's going to win this? Who is going to win this? Warrington must. Saints probably can.
You make a great point. I remember back to the game, just the one. So Warrington, they played Salford. If you remember, they were behind at half time by about 3 tries. Then they went on and won that game. They went over to Catalan and won that game that you mentioned earlier. And then, like Eddie said, it was Saints and Wigan. And it's funny how almost, the next 4 games, they play them 3 times, don't they? They play Catalan, Saints and Wigan. Wakefield in there as well. So it's funny how, that, like you said, was the start of where people were, if they'd have come through that first period 3 from 3, then everybody would have been a fool to bet against them going all the way. But they showed a bit of vulnerability in those 2 games where they lost to Saints and Wigan. And for me, this next month...
And that was Saints getting going as well, wasn't it, back in April?
Absolutely. I think this next month something big will happen off the back of it. Whether it's Warrington that come through it all and it kickstarts them off, or if they don't get through it, I dare say there'd be a lot of pressure on Darryl Powell then.
Talking about kick-starting things off, Wakefield at home to Wigan. Last time they played at home, Wakefield won.
There you go. And Wakefield last year were Warrington's bogey side. Couldn't beat them in the Cup, couldn't beat them in the Super League. Are we going to see the revival of Wakefield here in the next few weeks, I mean, I thought after 10 rounds they'd gone. I thought there's no chance. Yeah. They're on the way to the Championship. The new pitch, the new stand. What a shame it's going to end up down in the Championship. And will there be a way back for Wakefield moving forward with all the conjecture about how the Super League is going to be established in the future?
If Wakefield beat Wigan, which obviously is a big ask, and Castleford lose at home to Lee...
Yes, it's on.
Then it is game on, isn't it?
It's very much so. It is on. It is on. I'd be surprised if Wakefield beat Wigan, but I've just seen that figure and it's frightened me to death. I'm sure that Matty Peters driving that home as well. We can't lose this. We cannot lose this because with Saints going to Warrington, with Catalan involved as well. It's a time of the year where you don't lose, isn't it?
No, it's a strange place to go to, is Wakefield as well. It's done many. I remember obviously I spent 3 years there, and we turned over quite a few of the top 4 teams at the time there, and you almost, because of the ground, because of all the things that you've said, the new pitch, the fact that they're not playing very well, you almost can be guilty of, as a playing group, just. It only takes sort of 1 or 2 years to start thinking that, we should be all right here and we should get the win. And then that mindset can quickly turn to something problematic, But I think the biggest piece of news there is Luke Gale. You know, there's talk about Luke Gale season being over, isn't there now, with a suspected ankle injury or?
Oh no!
Yeah.
Really?
That's so.
I was going to say him and Fafita could be the key.
Exactly. I mean, there's no coincidence. Luke Gale
back's definitely made a difference.
Yeah, huge. But Luke Gale in there as well. You know, he's still a quality player. Yes, he's the older end of his career, but you know, with that question mark over his head, I think it might just be a bit too difficult.
And I saw him at the weekend. He celebrated a try at the weekend almost as well as he celebrated the drop goal against Saints that took Castleford to the grand final. I mean, he's enthusiastic,
yes.
Luke, isn't he?
Yeah.
You know, and it's infectious. It's a shame if he's not going to be there.
Also on Friday night, Castleford-Lee. Now, Castleford have won the last 8 home meetings against Lee, but this is a very different Lee
This
side.
is a slightly different Lee side they're facing this week. There's no question about that. And Castleford, they are wobbling without a shadow of a doubt. Again, it's a really interesting match. Just how good are Lee? Are they true second in the table? Because they're playing a team at the other end, second bottom of the table. So it's second top v second bottom. How good are Lee? We might find out. Have Castleford got it in them to get out of this hole that they're in? We might find out. Isn't it fabulous?
Brilliant.
For once in our lifetimes, we're saying we don't know what the heck is going on.
Give us a prediction then for Castleford-Lee.
Oh, thanks very much. Lee.
I'm going to go Castleford. I think it could be a potential banana skin for them here. I think going to Lee playing as well as what they have done. I think going to Castleford, a bit like what we said about the similar comparisons with Wakefield. I think Castleford might just pull a rabbit out the hat here. Right,
Saturday, Catalans versus Huddersfield.
Catalan. Yeah, Catalan comfortably. I think Huddersfield, I think they're in a very troublesome place. It almost reminds me of when I was at Warrington last year, that period where the lads literally know that they can't make the 6 and they almost just want the season out of the way. You know, sometimes the form, winning's a habit, losing's a habit, and they're in that horrible rut. There's obviously question marks with the coaching. The coach is obviously asking, question marks of their players. He wants to know who's on board next year, who isn't on board next year. So I don't see the Huddersfield thing being a quick fix anytime soon this year.
Sunday lunchtime, midday, doesn't get much bigger than this.
Big challenge scored! OFC going for the corner, flicks it away! King going for the line, he's over! Swift, and he'll get the try!
Midday, Sunday, live on Sky. When they met Easter, Hull KR won 40-0.
Yeah, they
at
did.
Their neighbours.
They did. I don't think it's going to be that easy this time round. I think Hull FC have got into a decent groove now at the moment. Even though they got beat against, Catalan 28-18, I still think that there's something bubbling away at Hull. Whether they've got time to rescue it and make a real charge for, those top spots, I don't know. But they are a team that sort of seem to have got it right now, and they've got some quality players playing incredibly well for them. I think my old mate Adam Swift, he's been sensational. Talk about wingers that we mentioned earlier. He's one of them that's right up there. He's in great form, I just think there's a lot of good stuff happening at Hull. So I think Hull FC win this one.
Hull Kingston Rovers have been playing really well this year, haven't they? But they've got the injuries. And Jordan Abdul is a massive blow for them. There's no question about that.
He was playing brilliant, wasn't he?
He was playing really well, and he's had a little word in the ear, I understand, for Mikey Lewis. Because, that slide tackle would have done Nobby Styles, credit, wouldn't it? What on earth was he doing with that? He gets Simbin and Lee go on and score 3 tries in quick succession. But Mikey Lewis, he's another one of those players, isn't he? I love watching him. You never know what you're going to get from him. He needs to. I think Jordan Abdul called it petulance. He's got to knock that petulance out of his game, and he could be the key for Hull Kingston Rovers. Hull will be smarting after that Good Friday, won't they? You don't expect to go to take on your local rivals on your own midden and get done by 40 points. Yeah. So Hull will want revenge, but knowing Tony Smith, he won't even be talking about revenge. He's not interested now with what happened on Good Friday, or Bad Friday for the Black and Whites. he is only going to be concentrating on this visit.
And very quickly, Carl, Salford Leeds. This is a huge game for both sides. Salford lost the last 3. Which Leeds is going to turn up, we don't know.
Yeah.
Salford won at Leeds 22-12 back in round 11.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. This is probably the hardest fixture, I think, in there. Probably Castleford-Lee as well, But I think Leeds. I think Leeds carry on with Blake Austin playing the way he is at the moment, and I think obviously that win against Warrington.
Is he suspended for this week?
Is he?
Austin?
Oh, I wasn't
Is he
sure.
suspended,
Yeah,
or
well,
is he injured?
Well,
Was it whispers?
if he isn't
Suspended.
playing, is he suspended? He is. Right. Well,
that evens it up a
Salford
bit.
it
got a
does.
couple
It
coming
does.
back
It
as
makes
well.
it even harder, then, doesn't it?
Salford have probably got Ackers and Briley back. So.
Well, they're huge. Those two are huge. Look, I'm gonna sit slap bang on the fence on this one. I honestly can't call it, Mark. I really
Golden
can't.
Point?
Go on then. Right. Okay. Right, I'll change my mind. I'll go Golden Point. I'll go Leeds Rhinos Golden Point.
Okay.
Right, just before we finish, in 2 weeks' time, we'll be doing the road to Wembley.
This is one of the favourite days of the year, the Rugby League Challenge Cup final.
Finds Cunningham, who's got support from Hardcastle. She looks to try and get that ball away to Partington. Partington scores.
That is one sensational try! This feels like a Challenge Cup final.
12th of August, we'll be at Wembley for the Women's Challenge Cup final and the men's as well. So looking forward to that. We've got Saints versus Lee, Wigan versus Hull KR in the Betfred Men's Challenge Cup. Right then, before we finish, good to see you, Carl. So you spoke about your old club, St Helens. Although they're in 5th, you still fancy them to go all the way?
I certainly do. Look, I think again, knowing that playing group, knowing how they can pull performances out when they need it the most, they almost thrive in the pressure. So that Australia win is still very much in there. They can still easily be, the best team in this competition. However, there's a lot of good teams in and around there. So yeah, I certainly think that they can, Mark.
And after round 17, if you're going to pick one for the Betfred Super League, who would it be?
For the title?
Yeah. You're allowed to name them now. Now you're not on Sky. You're not allowed to sit on the fence.
Well, I've never doubted St Helens could do 5 in a row. Never ever doubted. Interesting what Kyla said today, that there's different mindset maybe coming from
Really
4th or
interesting.
5th.
Yeah.
On their day, I think they are unplayable.
Yeah.
I really do. On their day, they could have the Challenge Cup in the boardroom as well as the World Club Challenge by then. I'm gonna give Paul Wellens the drive for 5.
But again, even all that then starts to add into, can they go on? Can they win a World Club Challenge? Could they win a Challenge Cup? And then that narrative builds more and more, doesn't it? Can they go on and do exactly? So
Brilliant. Love it. Right, enjoy round 18, and don't forget on Sunday in the Betfred Women's Super League, it's a Warrington Wolves versus St Helens on air at 1:45. Kick off at 2. See you soon.